function in ES5 and later. I'm going to Google JS Array.map. There we go. My MDN link array prototype map, meaning it's a method that will appear on every array. Creates a new array with the results of calling a provided function on every element in the calling array. Here's the part I care about right now. Calling a provided function on every element in the calling array. So it's going to do the same thing, call the same function on every item in the array. And it can take three, okay. So the syntax is you pass in a function. And that's the function it's going to call on every item in the array. So you make that function do what you want to do to the items in the array. And they call that argument callback, which when you pass a function to another function, that is typically called a callback, because presumably somewhere inside that function, it's going to call the one that you passed in, right? It's going to call it back. And the callback receives three parameters, the first of which is the current element being processed in the array. And then the next one is the index, and then the last one is the array itself. We just want to do the same thing to every item in the array, so I don't really care about these two arguments, and JavaScript doesn't enforce the number of arguments, so I'm just going to leave them out. And yeah, it says it returns a new array with the return values of the each call to the callback. I also don't care about that. I don't need a new array. I just want you to do something to each thing in the array. So a very simple use of map, and very common. So here's our array keys, right? I want to say keys.map. And we've established that that gets a function. And the function map is going to pass the current item in the array into that function. So you don't need to use I to do it. It'll just automatically create a variable out of that. We'll call it current meal, because that's what each of these keys is. Right? Nice descriptive variable name. Then I can console log now eating meals square bracket current meal nom nom nom. Yeah, totally works. Now eating rice. Nom, 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 nom. Now eating protein cookie. Nom, 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 nom. Now eating wool nothing. Nom, 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 nom. Oh man, now I totally lost it. You get it? So that's a much more succinct syntax for doing that thing. And in something like this, where this function that we pass in, we're never going to reuse this. This only exists for the purpose of this map. So an anonymous function right in line here seems fine to me. A little bit simpler than having to go through the whole square bracket I thing. It just it just loops through the whole thing. So again, you don't even need to say like less than length or anything like that. You don't need to tell it I++. Map just always calls this function, passing in each item individually. So if there are 5 things in the array, it'll call that function 5 times.
The array being keys?
Mm-hmm. Right. So if we have const fruit equal apple, orange, banana, fruit.map function current fruit alert current fruit apple, orange, banana, and it's done. Get it? Yeah.
Is current meal a value of an object, or is it just an arbitrary?
It is whatever each item of the array is. So it's just the next value in the array. And you could have different types in the same array. This isn't C. So it's just the next item in the array, whatever it happens to be. So I named it that because I know that's what each item in the array is. Like over here, I knew each of these items was a fruit, so I called it fruit. But it's whatever the next item in the array is. It's going to do it for each one. Cool. More succinct syntax, and we're going to be doing this quite a bit, so you'll get used to it. You'll be tripping over each other to tell me to use map before you know it. So we used map over here. In handle submit, I made an object for the person whose stats we're getting ready to print. I made the name value from the form. I made the age value from the form. And I made favorite color actually call render color so that favorite color holds the actual div, not just the color. And then for each of those things, I want to call render list item, right? So that's what I did. Object.keys person gives us an array with the string name, the string age, the string favorite color. And then I did whatever the heck this is. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But you see how I can use map instead of a for loop to call this once for each of the properties that we got out of the form?
So do you use for loops at all?
Are they
still relevant or no?
I mean, they're a little faster because, you know, there's a function call every time through on map. It's calling a function that many times. So they do perform a little better. So if that's super important, then you can certainly still use them. But these tend to be easier to read, especially in some of the projects we're going to be working on. So, but yeah, I mean, it's not like you should totally forget that they exist. But map is really cool. Right. So also it did say that it took the return values and built a new array out of them. So map does return something. We just haven't been doing anything with that. So I could say const megafruit, and then instead of console logging this, I could return the string mega, and then whatever the current fruit is. And then if I console log megafruit, I get an array, mega apple, mega orange, mega banana. So sometimes that return value is handy if you want to build a new array that basically transforms these values into something else. So that new array is always going to have the same number of elements as the original array. If I didn't have a return value in here, I would get an array with 3 undefines. Get it? All right, now let's look at that weird syntax that I used over here in the code.